Man. Of course, my mic go out as soon as I stop. Yo, what up? This Deuce. This is another episode of Commanders Draft Coverage. And today we're gonna take a couple steps back a little bit. We're gonna talk about Ben Sinnott and Cade Stover before we start off with the wide receivers today. Because I want to kind of get some clear content so we can put those guys out individually, how we've been doing during the week every day with the new prospect. So I definitely want to do that today before we get into the wide receivers. And just FYI, if you catch me looking up or if they ask me a question and it seems like I'm ignoring them, I am not ignoring you guys.
You are.
Yo, what up? Welcome back to the Commanders Draft Coverage. I am Deuce. We got Adam. We got Kyle. We got DT in the building. What's good, man? How you doing, Kyle? How you feeling?
It's another beautiful Sunday here in the DMV. Beautiful day. I was able to enjoy it at a birthday party, but now I'm here with you guys talking draft, and we're gonna start out with some tight ends here. We got to clarify some things.
Exactly. What's up, Adam?
So, man, it's getting close, weeks away. It's a lot of content to run through, in my opinion, from now to the draft. And, just looking forward to getting into it, guys.
Yes, sir. DT, what's going on, 757?
What's up, man? I just need somebody's mother to slap me back into next week because spring break just ended for me, and now I got to go back to work. But it's good. We got a couple more weeks for this draft fatigue to be finally over and we get some answers. But we're going to talk about some wide receivers, but we're going to talk about these tight ends that we've been talking about in the chat just a little bit today. We're going to touch in on these two guys.
Yeah, so let me let's go with Cade Stover, and then we're going to pull up Ben Sinnott from the Burgundy and Gold Report. Let's start with you, Kyle.
First off, I watched some of Cade Stover today, and what immediately jumps out to you is his physical presence. He's matched up physically, a lot like Ben Sinnott, 6'4", 247 pounds, Sinnott 250. But with Cade Stover, he is big, man, and he is a fantastic blocker, either in pass pro or run blocking. He does run some people over. And then out in space, he is almost like Jatavion Sanders out in space, where he's a big body that you don't want to get out in front of. He actually does pretty well. With Cade Stover today, I was actually very impressed. I just think that the measurables are a little bit different. Ran a 4.65 40, 34.5-inch vertical, a 9.9 broad, whereas Sinnott a 10.6 broad, and then a 4.68 40 and a 40-inch vert. So you see the explosion a little bit different with Sinnott, and you see that on film a little bit. But I think that the argument for Cade Stover is growing in the middle rounds.
Yeah, because I'm getting a lot, Adam, talking about Ben Sinnott and, which I did to me with Jatavion Sanders. He was my number 2 guy, and you all destroyed my dreams with him.
I didn't even know that.
But after watching you all, the tape you all provide, I kind of agree. But Cade Stover might be somebody that could possibly get to the 5th round if they don't decide to come back in the 4th. How you feel about him, Adam?
I'll be honest with you. I recently did a write-up on this kid Holker, for a tight end from Colorado State. I like him a lot more. I like the game that he offers with Cade. If I'm not mistaken, again, I might be, but from what I think I read, that Stover switched, I think, from defense only like 2 years ago or so. He's still raw in a lot of areas, but he does, he's more of that traditional inline guy. So if you can get him in the mid to late rounds, that's excellent value. but like overall, he's gaining steam. And the thing is, as we get to the draft, you'll see a different guy will gain steam different weeks here. But I'm just telling you, Holker is my guy for mid to late round, or in that 5th, 6th round. That has tremendous value, and that's where I see Stover. But honestly, I think Stover is going to go earlier. Ohio State guy. I think there was just more in attendance. Yeah, let's be honest with the Ohio State's pro day into the Colorado State. So some of the guys from Colorado State, I'm big on Muhammad Kamara, defensive end. So I'm looking at these different schools, but I think honestly a lot of teams are focused on like these power schools. So that'll help Stover a lot when it comes to the draft. But again, overall, I like a lot more. Definitely, I have a lot of tight ends ahead of him at this point.
DT.
Yeah, so obviously, since I'm an Ohio State fan, I've been watching K his entire career. So when he got to Ohio State, he was one of the best linebackers in the country. He was one of the best linebackers coming out of high school. And then, unfortunately, COVID came in, so he kind of had to change his position a little bit to find some playing time. And remember, he also played behind a guy like Jeremy Ruckert, who went to the New York Jets. So with K, he's one of those guys who's going to be very physical with you in line blocking, and then his receiving skills are a little bit underrated, I would say. But I think he's kind of adequate. I don't think he doesn't have like the elite traits that pop off for his type of positioning, but I think he has probably one of the highest floors in this tight end class, who can come in immediately, gives you a good block then and there, and then provide you some options in the passing game. And when everybody is focusing on maybe a guy like Terry or Jahan, a sneaky guy to get you about 400, 500 yards per season.
Appreciate that. All right, this next guy, what's up, Carson? What's up, Radar? Again, everyone that's joining us, we are going to get into the wide receivers, but we wanted to kind of clear up some content for Cade Stover and Ben Sinnott, which we're about to get into now. This is written by Adam. There we go. So yeah, Ben Sinnott, 6'4", 254 pounds. Adam has a draft projection in late 2nd round, but let's start with you, Kyle. How you feel about Ben Sinnott?
Ben Sinnott's very athletic. He's like an all-around kind of good prospect where he has good fundamentals and blocking. He does the right things with his hands and landing his hands on the chest of the blocker, but he's not going to blow anybody away, in my personal opinion, at the next level. But as an athletic, just receiving end, he's somebody who could do something with his hands. And so I think like somebody like the Miami Dolphins, where they have Tyreek Hill, they have these other guys to be able to blow the lid off of defense. He's somebody who can attack from underneath in these sort of like attacking zone coverages. And I think Ben Sinnott also showing the athleticism coming out of the backfield, being used as a fullback, blocking in that regard. It's not like physicality is something that he shies away from in any regard, but I think that's somebody you can add in with an offensive kind of coach that can implement him into the game plan to his strengths, meaning putting the ball in his hands, let him go to work, because nobody wants to tackle a 6'4", 250-pound guy running full speed.
Right. Adam, like, is this is the guy that kind of remind me of
Chris Cooley.
Yeah, Chris Cooley, right? Is this him?
Yeah. Now
he's just about to say that while I was thinking.
Just like, Chris Cooley was a wrestler, slash football, but this guy was in baseball, hockey, track, golf, tennis, football. Played also, defense. So lined up linebacker, outside pass rusher. Like, he was doing it all in high school, and he didn't get much attention. I think it went no stars coming out, but he had a Division II that was willing to offer him a scholarship, and he walked on to Kansas State. And ever since, honestly, he's been one of the heart and soul of the team from everyone, I've reached out to for Kansas State. But again, the issue with him is that the lack of overall career production. You know what I mean? I think he had a really legit year last year. He had, honestly, statistical better year than Sanders. He was more valuable to his team. Sanders, was nowhere as impactful as he was. As you can see on the video you showed, he's a lot better right now as a blocker coming out of the backfield as like a fullback, H-back role. He's still learning the nuances of an inline blocker. So that's where you got to be careful. And exactly after Bowers, it's a significant drop. That's why when you have guys like Sinnott, Sanders, there's a bunch of Wiley, other guys are going to be in the mix for that area. So it's really picking your poison, honestly, not saying he's better than Sanders. Sanders is better than him, because it's all about fit. So, we talked about Stover, that's all about fit. He goes to the right team. He could be a 600 yard receiver every year, or it could be a mainly blocking tight end, get you 200 yards, a touchdown a year. It's all about system and, and where you go. But for me with Sinnott, I just I say Chris Cooley because over the last couple of years, the kid out in San Francisco is the closest, but Sinnott is significantly bigger than him. He's 6'4" compared to 6'2", a lot bigger size, but again, very athletic, but again, still really raw. I think, still 2-3 years away of really showing what he can do. But I think you get him in an NFL workout program, training facility, good coaching, like in an offense that is balanced, because that's what I think he needs to be in. You're looking for, a high power passing offense, not much running. He's not really your guy. So if you're looking for that mix, which I think Washington is, that's why I'm really high on him. I think you get a guy like this. Second round, I think that's where he deserves to go. But if I'm Washington, I think you got some other positions you got to take care of. So for whatever reason, he somehow slips to that third round range, man, you jump on him. But yeah, to me, after Brock Bowers, significant drop. But yeah, Sinnott's the next one for me.
Was this his most productive year in 49 receptions? 49 receptions,
not even close.
676 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and his career, although the rest of those numbers were sprinkled out years of, between walk on and really not being a focus of the offense, just like being like a rotational guy to come in and block. So he really didn't get the opportunity until the last 2 years. So last year, he is the definition of a one-hit wonder. Can he do this again? But just the more I continue to watch it, from him, I just project him as a really good pro. But it's going to be all about system with him, because I think if you have a plan, I think you don't have to have a traditional fullback in your offense to utilize someone like him. I think he's the guy, you talk about, guys like Curtis Samuel, guys that can do different things. He's not in that same mold, but he's the kind of guy that can do the different things for your offense. And just, and I think when it comes to picking third down blitzes, he's a guy that I would feel better about than some of our backs right now, to be honest with you. So, But again, third round, more likely I'd hope he'd fall, but I think somebody's going to grab him in round 2. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that like him.
DT, do you think he's an Anthony Lynn type guy?
I would say he's an Anthony Lynn type of guy. I mean, you look at the physicality he plays with, the versatility he has, and we know with Lynn coming from the 49ers,
right,
who he had in the backfield. He had Kyle Juszczyk and he had George Kittle. 2 guys that Kyle Shanahan then were able to find different ways to move around the lineups, create matchup problems. And what you see from Ben Sinnott, he's able to be moved around. And I think that's something that's kind of needed in Washington to provide some physicality and some matchup problems as well. And if you think about him coming to Washington with a guy like Zach Ertz, who has had a definitely solid career. You can teach him some of the fine things, like Adam said. He's only 21, if I'm not mistaken. So there's still a lot of time for this guy to learn the game from the ins and outs, and learning from a guy like Zach Ertz, who has been one of the best, I should say, move tight ends in probably the past 10 years. That is definitely a huge upside to Ben Sinnott's game. But I would love to have Ben Sinnott in this offense. You can do such incredible things with him moving around, H-back, dictate what the defense is what you want to do.
Am I crazy for seeing a young Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz,
I'll add with him, talk about walk on, the amount of work that this guy put in at Kansas State, because that's the more research I did, the amount of work and time. He was the first one in, first one out. That's the kind of guy that I know, good teams are looking for. So I think that is good. The 30-30 visits, whatever they have, anytime the teams have got an opportunity to talk with him, I've heard that they're just blown away with, his work ethic. Talk about Jaden Daniels, teams have been blown away with, a lot of what he had to say. So I think that's going to mean a lot to teams. And I think if you're a team like Washington, you have Zach Ertz, so you have somebody, a veteran in place, ready to, tutor. And you just never know. A guy like Armani Rogers could pop up and be one of our best tight ends this year, But I think that investing in the position after we take care of some offensive line, some other areas, but again, a great value if somehow he slips to the third. I just don't see it. I don't see him slipping. I think teams are going to love him.
Great work, guys. We definitely going to get those out the top of the week. Ben Sinnott and Stover. All right, let's get into these wide receivers. So Marvin Harrison for the last couple years coming into this year, he's the consensus number one. I mean, he's kind of still is the consensus number one, but Neighbors is right there. A lot of people have Neighbors either in front of him or 1B if you want to do the 1A, 1B. Let's start with DT. Let's just talk about them two specifically. Like, what's like how can we separate these two, or how can one or the other separate, and what type of receiver is each one of those guys?
Well, I think for Marvin is he's one of those players that you can create in a lab and you can just install on your field any day. 6'4", way bigger than his father was 6 foot in the NFL, 205 pounds. Played at Ohio State. We know the pedigree that those Ohio State receivers for Brian Hartline is, and for him to be that tall and able to move like that on the field is ridiculous. Being productive as well, despite having all the guys around him who are productive as well. Even Emeka Ibuka could have had an opportunity to come out this year, but decided to stay back for another year at Ohio State. So, that's just the thing with Marvin Harrison. And one thing about him, too, is every week there was a good defense that he was likely to go against, like the Iowas, Michigan, Penn State, Georgia, and he always stepped up to the challenge. Even a guy like Notre Dame, where this year we kind of saw our guy Cam Hart had his way a little bit in Benjamin Morris, but those are two drafted in NFL someday. So Marvin Harrison is battle tested as well. He's always stepped up to the challenge in the biggest moments, and with Malik Neighbors, he's one of those guys where we see now where they have that ability to get yards after catch, and everybody loves yards after catch. Silky smooth wide receiver. Not really tall, 6 foot, but he has that game changing ability, just like Marvin, but just in a different way. You think of more like a DJ Moore type. Gets the ball at yards at the catch. We see him take 0 to 60 yards per game. And just based on situations, I think his first year at Malik Neighbors, it was pretty okay. It was first time learning that offense with Jaden Daniels. Then the next year, they just instantly explode. But in any other year, if Marvin Harrison wasn't in the draft, you could definitely have another argument for who will be wide receiver one. Even Rome Odunze, who was also talented as well.
Adam?
Yeah, he mentioned Deuce at the end. I honestly think this draft is going to be historic with the receivers, because I do think these three top receivers are going to have really productive careers. At least one of them, maybe two, are potential Hall of Famers, in my opinion. But I think when you look at Neighbors, you think Jefferson, and then you have Marvin Harrison. That's that big receiver type. So it's really about what your team is looking for. So that's why I'm not so sure. I wouldn't be surprised if the way Arizona plays with Kyler Murray, that Neighbors doesn't make more sense for them, because he's a guy that can really get you a lot of yards underneath. Going over the top is not something that always, I think, Kyler Murray loves to do. So I think one of those guys could go before. And then Deuce, like I said, that's a pretty solid third option. I don't think I've seen many drafts where the third rated receiver is this good. So, and then you keep going through the draft and you continue to see that, there's a significant drop between this talent. But I think when you get to that next tier, it's like these guys are still starters. They're still starting material wide receivers. So I think this might be the deep, we talk about offensive line in the quarterbacks, but wide receiver from round 1 to round 3, even round 4, I think is extremely deep.
So Kyle, wide receivers are already divish, whatever you want to pronounce it. That's just part of their aura. But some information came out today, which we was shared in the group chat earlier, about it might be some off-field stuff with Neighbors. How do you kind of look at those reports leading up to the draft, and then tell us what you like between him and Marvin Harrison?
Well, there's some team is going to benefit from that news coming out.
Yeah, Caleb, you see that? That's what you're supposed to do, Caleb.
Yeah, so that's exactly right, though. But with Neighbors, I almost view him more so in a way of like Antonio Brown, in the way that he's used. Like they can use him in the slot, attacking the seam route there. But with Marvin Harris, it's like a typical number 1 wide receiver. He's going to be outside. He's going to dominate he's going to be able to run all the routes, but maybe he does need refinement and separation and routes and stuff like that. That could be easily identified like we saw with Cam Hart and others. But with Marvin Harrison, I think the one thing that he did not benefit from in school is the quarterback.
Right.
And that's not his fault. Like, he shows you everything that he does. Like, he commands everything he's supposed to as a number one. And also he's commanding himself post the season as a number one. I mean, if Deion Sanders came out today, this is what Deion would be doing. You know what I mean? And so Marvin Harrison Jr. is conducting himself the way he needs to be. And Neighbors, I feel like Neighbors is a chess piece that you can move anywhere and attack. And if you're adding him with a plethora, you can feel really good about that situation. But it's not like it's a detriment to Neighbors that he had a better quarterback. Him being 6 foot, 200 pounds, he's still electric with the ball in his hands. He can do it close to the line of scrimmage. He can attack you up the zone or in the seam. He's really a special talent. Both these guys are. I think Neighbors had 14 touchdowns this season. So obviously Jaden Daniels loves the combo of him and Brian Thomas. And so if you can add him maybe to a team like Seattle, obviously it's not going to happen. That I'm not sure where their first round picks are, but just saying with DK Metcalf, that's a really scary recipe. So if Neighbors is going as the number one option, there might be a little trepidation there. But if he's getting added into something that's already mixing well, then he's going to be cooking with gas.
All right, Rome or Dunze, Adam. What's your profile on Rome?
Yeah, he's not a guy that I project Washington has a chance for. So, that's usually what I base a lot of my scout reports on. But I watch a lot of Washington games. I really like Penix a lot. So, but him, what's different, I think similar to, Marvin Harris, big body, 6'3", 32 plus inch arms, he really uses that length. That's what I love about him. And I think that coming from, the defenses he played, that's the difference between him and Marvin Harrison. So that's one thing that there's a lot of projection involved. I have no doubt Udeze is going to be good, but from going from the Pac-12 to the NFL level, that's going to be an issue. Pac-10, excuse me. But I think that to me, you put him with the Bears and what they're going to have going on, I think that's the most likely fit.
So, like, DT, you think about Marvin, Malik, Roman, Brian Thomas. All of those guys may go, top 15, maybe top 18.
Definitely.
But then you get into, are we going to trade back into the first for a premium player? Is wide receiver high enough on the board to, if someone like Ladd or Donnie Mitchell, any of those guys begin to fall? Because those are probably the next guys to go in that next tier. Any one of those guys kind of jump out to say, you know what, this is a can't miss target at 21 or somewhere around it.
To me, if there was a guy that I would love in this offense, I would have to say A.D. Mitchell on the outside. I think having him with Terry and Jahan, you can have him play the X position and you can have Terry play the Z, be a little bit more free, be able to move around the chess piece. I think AD, he didn't get the benefit, even though he had the numbers. When he went to Texas, he could have had far more yards, far more production than what he actually had. And that was also on quarterback play. But I think he has all the makings to be an instant guy, just like we see from George Pickens. And if you add him with this wide receiver room that's, kind of bleak, I would say, after, Terry, Jahan, and a Crowder. I mean, well, not even a Crowder. I would say Zacchaeus will probably have a good productive role. I like what I've seen for him the past couple of years, but it's kind of bleak right now. I think A.D. Mitchell, he would be your guy to be on the outside. But that would be a guy I would probably trade for. But you know me, I want that tackle. I want that tackle, man. But I would love AD.
Sure, for sure. What's up, Kurt? What's up, Cheddar Bob? What's up, Cheddar Bob?
That's messed up. It's Brian Johnson.
Cal, yeah, right. Towards on your top 10, right? Of course, DT just talk about AD. Right after them, you got Keon Coleman, Ricky. Like those guys, it can, who knows, right? They can go bottom of the first or top of the second. But which one of those guys did you profile that you was like, you know what? If they're there late in the first, I gotta go up there and get them?
Well, I think Troy Franklin, for one, from Oregon, you do have to put the caveat in there of the defenses like Adam and DT kind of talked about before. But there is one play against Washington I want you guys to go see. I think it was a sack on the play. But there's a play where Troy Franklin does a juke step on this dude and leaves the corner on the line of scrimmage. Like, he is so confused. He's still looking around, and Troy Franklin's past the first down marker. And so you're looking at a guy with 6'2", 176 pounds, a 4'4", 140, a 39-inch vertical, and a 10'4" broad. When you watch his film, he's kind of a guy that it doesn't scream out to you like that is a number one dude, but I think that this is a guy that almost like a piercer. He just seems like somebody very quick twitched and that could get the ball in his hands. But I feel like at the next level, it's going to be an injury concerns and later on. But I think Brian Thomas is up there with me. I think that Brian Thomas is probably the guy you're looking at the end of the first round. His measurables are incredible. 6'3", 209 pounds. At 6'3", 209, he ran a 4.33, 38.5-inch vert, and a 10.6 broad. And it's kind of disgusting. And when you watch his film, the kind of connection that he has with Jaden Daniels, he's just a big target and he's not scared to run over the middle. And you talked about Adonai Mitchell earlier. His measurables themselves are not any short or slight. 6'2", 205, a 4.3 40, 39.5-inch, and 11.4 broad. So showing the explosion of Adonai Mitchell in short spurts. But I will say with Adonai, I think that he needs refinement in route running. It does seem a little bit choppy, a little bit rounded right now. But honestly, sometimes he looks like CD Lamb to me, to be perfectly honest. And I don't say that slightly. I like CD coming out a lot. I really did. But I feel like it's almost like that because with CD, that was one of my biggest gripes is a lot of the times he runs a very rounded route. And obviously he's cleaned it up now being in a good situation. But that's just what I see.
So you hear the fan base. We always talk about, or, you hear the fan base talk about, we need a 6'3" guy. We need a 6'4" guy. But are they going to play 6'3"? Are they going to play 6'4"? Like Terry plays 6'2", 6'3". That's how he plays football. That's what you want. Someone that can attack, contested catches, be available in the end zone, all different types of things like this. But Adam, if this guy's there at I don't know what, third round, right? You got, what grade do you have with him?
Malachi?
Late second, third round. Yes, Malachi Corey.
Kyle's the one that turned me on to him, and after I watched,
we did on the show.
I was sold. It's like 5'11", 215 doesn't jump out for you, but he plays like he's 6'4".
We're supposed to be quiet about this, fellas. We're not supposed to put him on the list.
I think the word's out on him. Honestly, I think he's going to end up getting picked up way earlier than people think. I think don't be surprised if you see a team at the early second round or even late first, because I think when you look at the group after the top three, I think those guys can go anywhere. I think that they can go any order, any round. And a guy like this, to me, it would not surprise me if he goes a lot earlier, because I think he gives you options on special teams as a returner. He's extremely hard. They call him the yak god. That's what the article was called. And you just, what you see on tape is what you get from him. And I think that that's not going to stop at the next level, because the way he plays, he's just brutish. He's brutish, and he can just take over games. And I think as long as you're not saying, hey, you got to be a wide receiver one right away. With Washington, I just want to see Terry and Jahan line up in the slot in more occasions. So I'm evaluating a lot of these outside guys. He's one of the smaller outside guys, but between him, Xavier Leggett, Johnny Wilson from Florida State, these are a lot of the guys. I look at them not just only size matters, but what I'm looking at is what do they do with the ball in their hands? How easily are they taken down? This team needs receivers that aren't going down after initial contact. We need guys that are going to get us yacked. So that's a lot of the prospects I'm looking at. And you know what? After Kyle was talking about him, I was like, I got to watch this guy. And I watched him, and I can't stop. Every day I watch a little more of him, and he just impresses me more.
Can you send me your access, dude? Because I can't find anything for 2023.
That's my buddies at the Scouting Academy, man.
Okay.
I get that, and I'm lucky, man. I'm lucky.
So, Cal, when you thinking about Malachi Corey, this is what I've learned from you all from the 5 weeks. I think 4 or 5 weeks we've done this show. You can't just look at measurables without the tape. You see 5'11", and you hear people on the timeline say, "Nope, we need a 6'4" guy. We need a 6'3" guy." He plays bigger than what he is, right? So this is why the tape is so important.
Oh, absolutely. And a guy like, just to bring up for reference, a guy like Keon Coleman, right, who ran a 4.61 40. He's when you watch his film, he doesn't run like a guy who runs like 4.61, right? And so
Right.
the same thing with like a guy like Malachi Corley, that might be his measure, but he doesn't play to that height. And neither does Terry McLaurin. And with Malachi Corley, he runs like he's angry. Like how with Adrian Peterson, they said that he ran like he was angry. It's same thing with Malachi Corley. It's hard to bring him down. And even in the 22 film, you see it. It's not like he's getting every single rep, but when the ball's in his hands, he's making it happen. And you see the talent immediately. Running through tackles. That's why they give it to him at the line of scrimmage to say basically it's a run play, do something with it, and he does.
Debo type skills, man. Like that's what you're looking for. Teams, I think if you're looking to emulate what Kyle Shanahan's doing, which a lot of teams are, he's the kind of guy that can do that for you. As your second, third option, inevitably, I think he'll be a number one guy in a couple years.
DT, we need a yak god, bro. Like we need somebody that can, because if you able to get him, then when we think about we want a guy that can take it clean to the house, like he fits that bill, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and definitely that is something that's kind of been missing last year, and just overall with the team, you just need guys who are able to go 0 to 60 and be very explosive when the ball is in their hands. Malachi Corey, he has had a productive year, 10 to 11 touchdowns, be able to move out the ball quick. You see this drag route right here. He's going 0 to 60 right now. Look at it. Boom. Automatically. So that's somebody I would love to have on the team. He's also played in the air raid system as well. So that's a good benefit for him if he comes to Washington. But I'm just thinking about this wide receiver class, man. Like we haven't even gone to like what 10? It's so many wide receivers in this class. Like, it's ridiculous, man.
Yeah, like this kid Xavier Levitt, he's gonna go under the radar from South Carolina and it's not because he's not good. It's just because his 4.3 sub speed's really good, 6'1", 220. But teams are looking at a lot of these guys. So I think a couple of these guys are gonna fall to right where Washington is looking for him. From everything that we've heard, I'd be shocked if we get to that third round and Washington doesn't look to get one of these receivers, because I think you just be patient. I think if you're trading up, to me, you're trading up for offensive linemen. Otherwise, you're staying pat your choices, and I think the draft is really going to unfold the way we hope. I just have this feeling. I don't think we might be like question the prospect, but the position is going to be on point. That's how I really think it's going to go down.
I just want to put this out there that somebody needs to reach out to Xavier and let him know legally he should change his last name to Legit. At this point, it's just so quick. And he is legit, though. And the one thing that Adam brings up is perfect. He's 220 pounds. He ran a 4.39 40, had a 40-inch vertical, and a 10.6 broad.
And he's like the 7th or 8th guy. Like, that's a deep draft.
And when you watch him, he attacks the football in the air, and that's what you referenced earlier, right, Deuce? You talked about earlier being able to attack the football, and that's the kind of guys that we need. It's not just about size. Do you have the speed? Can you attack the football? Yeah, he needs refinement in route running and other concepts like that, but like you guys have already talked about, this wide receiver class is plentiful, and Logan Paulson has told us before, what these passing leagues are doing is just these wide receivers are coming in just polished and ready to go for the NFL.
Right. Xavier Legette, DT, our boy Krim, he's been talking about it for like a couple months now. Gave us an opportunity to go look and watch him. What you think about him?
Look, we're talking about Legette, man. He has that physical size. You see the breakaway speed on a couple of plays he's had. He has all the measurables to be, that guy that can have an impact on your team. I think the one thing that will have scouts and executives concerned is really the only 1 year of production, like a 1 year wonder, like you talk about with Jada Daniels or, some other people like that. And also been on college for 5 years. That's definitely something that will lead some things. But like Adam said, man, like these type of guys, like you could see them fall and Washington snatch them up, and we got something special. And
this is the year to, honestly, that's why I feel good. I haven't felt this good in a while about a draft. This is the year to have multiple picks in the top 3 rounds, 2 seconds, 3 thirds. There's a lot of maneuvering ability. So it's like Washington could sit in that third round, but if they start to get late in that second and they see a guy they like, they could jump up. And you're talking about, late first round talent is going to be in that range. So I think that extra third round, these extra picks that they got, they're going to pay off, because I don't think we're going to trade back from number 2, but I definitely think they're going to move around in that third, second round range. Definitely.
For sure. What's up, Chuck? What's up, D'Angelo? Radar in the building. Trails just stopped through, talking about the country boy Xavier. But let's talk about Keon Coleman. This is one of the guys that the fans want. You see him mocked in a lot of drafts, bigger guy. He doesn't have that breakaway speed, but let's talk about him a little bit, Kyle. How you like Keon Coleman?
The one thing with Keon Coleman we have to do start this off is that his hands are not always consistent in contested catches situations. But when it comes down to clutch ability, Keon Coleman comes through for you. He's a pretty good route runner. He's able to run everything. Doesn't have the elite separation, and he doesn't always come down with the ball or attack it. But he is somebody that is reliable in the sense of being able to get the ball to very shallow kind of catches that he does with where he's at now. But I think at the next level, you're looking at somebody like a Pierre Garçon type of wide receiver, where a kind of bigger guy that's going to go out and catch. He's not going to blow the doors off you by any stretch, but he can catch a football, run through you. But he is somebody that's reliable, that's going to be there for you. And if you have a good quarterback that likes to distribute the football, he's going to do plenty well for you.
Adam?
Yeah, this is a former basketball player, played for Tom Izzo at Michigan State. So I love these former basketball players at tight end and wide receiver. But again, his 4.6 sub speed, that's going to hurt him. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, you start to get into that, late second, early third round, someone like him could slip. And I think you add him to an offense with, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, I think you could do some great things with him. Again, overall production, Kyle mentioned it, not concentration lapses is what I saw. I'm hoping to get a scouting report out for the draft for them. I'm not sure I will, because I'm not sure I see Washington investing in him. I think that they're going to try to look at a more explosive guy, but he's the definition of like a chain mover, possession guy that, physicality. Like, you think like Anquan Bolden, just not quite as physical as him, but I think that he can add a lot to an offense. But again, you're going to have to deal with some of his shortcomings. Like I said, you're not going to have breakaway speed. He's going to get caught from behind. He's not going to give you a ton of yards after the catch. So a guy that size, you'd expect him to be, a little more of a bully, but that's not his game. But and saying that, I really do like him if somehow he is there in that third round.
A good game of reference is against Clemson and how he played against Nate Wiggins, who I think ran like a 4.28 40 at the combine. So that's a good reference for you, how he matches up against him in the verts, in the crossers. In the crossers, he does pretty well against them. But in the verts, that's where you obviously see it.
He struggles, yeah.
DT, they in the chest, they say he got return punts, man.
But you got Jamison Crowder back for that. So I don't think they're going to draft receiver and cut him. I think he's on the team. He's your return guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he does punt and kick return either. I'd do it.
Well, I heard he was only there to teach Kaiser Allen how to catch punts.
Oh, I love him. I really hope they give. I haven't given up on him. I scouted him last year because I think he can do. He definitely can fit that Curtis Samuel role. But I like to see him in return game.
DT, what you think about him?
Yeah, so I remember Keon from Michigan State. He was a basketball player, so that background definitely helps him when it comes to contested catches and big plays and stuff like that. But if he's going to take it to the next level, there's definitely going to have to be some refinements in his game. He has the potential, the physical aspect of his game, 6'4", be able to leap ball, contested catches and stuff, but working on his route running, especially when it comes to releases off the line and throughout the entirety of the play, that's definitely something that you would like to see him grow in that aspect. I do see a lot of people talk about getting Coleman and stuff. He probably will be on our range, but I don't know if Washington will pull that. If they do pull that trigger, I'll still support it because this guy is very talented. Because I feel like for me, he is a first player off the bus type of guy. He's going to come in and put the work in to become better than what he was yesterday. So this is a guy who's going to have great talent, and you're going to see that when he make big one-handed catches like I seen this year, which was ridiculous. That 3 touchdown game against LSU, that was probably one of my favorite moments for watching him.
It brings memories of Kelvin Harmon a little bit.
Oh boy. DT, let's go right back to you. Like just Javon Baker guy you've been talking about for a while now.
Hey, look, I watched UCF for probably like 6 games because I was bored. And every time I was watching the quarterback Plumlee, and then I was watching the tackle, but every time I watched number one, he just kept popping off the screen. Find out he transferred from Alabama to UCF, got more of an opportunity. And, we talked about some of the wide receivers. If there's anybody who has a personality that's kind of like George Pickens, to me, it's Javon Baker. And his route running is very good. I just want y'all to go and look at his games, look at some of the things he has done. He plays the ball bigger than his size. He is 6'1", but he can go up and get it. If even for the episode you did, Deuce, with Ryan Fowler, he literally said the same things, route runner. And this guy, because of how deep this draft class is, you could probably get him somewhere late day 2 or maybe even day 3. This guy could come in and definitely be a wide receiver 3. To me, I like everything about Javon Baker game.
Adam.
Yeah, no, me and Doug McCrae, we had Fowler on too, and we were talking about. He was not even my radar, but then you heard about the Alabama. He was stuck in a numbers game there, transferred, and it's like this is a guy that you're gonna be like, where the hell did he come from? Like that's the kind of production I think you're gonna get from early. But again, destination is everything. Like if he can go somewhere, and there's gonna be a lot of attention on the wide receiver 1, 2, he can just break out. I think that's where, again, talk about a team like Washington. So, like, if somehow he's in that third round, that middle to the late third round, which I don't think it's a talent thing that he should be there. I just think it's a depth thing of the position and the draft overall talent that he might be there. But again, he's someone that a team or two might say, hey, we're just going to take him in the second round. So don't be surprised if he's going early either. So, but man, I love his game.
Kyle.
I actually have not watched any UCF this season. I'm not gonna lie to you, I've been busy as all heck. But I wrote down his name though, so I'm gonna watch him this week and let you know what I think.
Sounds good. All right, so when we look to the third round, we have a guy, Johnny Wilson. Kyle, we'll start with you, Kyle. What about Johnny Wilson, Kyle? Have you done any look at Johnny Wilson at all this year?
Yes, sir. I was able to watch him with Keon Coleman, and one thing that pops out to you is that they interchange like the number one outlet at times based on who the hot hand is. And there's times where Johnny Wilson does take over the game. And you look at the 6'7" frame, you're like, all right, this guy can't separate, but he actually does very well. Good hands for a big man. Using that length, big hands, be able to catch a lot of contested balls. He's used to that in that regard. I know a lot of people have talked about him transitioning to tight end, but honestly, I don't see any limits in his game that would need him to be able to do that. I think off break, this dude is a matchup nightmare for any cornerback. Being 6'7", the length that he has, you just put the ball out there, he's going to have an easy advantage any day of the week. Doesn't matter who it is that he's facing against. So I think Johnny Wilson is somebody, obviously, you want to keep your eye on him. When we talk about how, like, plentiful this draft is, this is what we're talking about. The number 2 option on Florida State being actually a number 1 option at times and being an already matchup nightmare. Look, I understand that he has shortcomings, of course, but you're talking about in the value that you're getting him for and the production you could be getting with somebody like a Justin Herbert, so to speak, who likes taller wide receivers like Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, might benefit.
What's up, y'all? What's up, Unc? I see you in the building. Kim, Dog Tide, Smoke, who has changed his name to Mayday. This is nasty. Radar was good. Radar said his former teammate of James Dansby. It said Johnny Will should convert to tight end. So just by watching the tape, kind of looking at your markup, Adam, you can see, the conversations about him being a tight end.
Yeah, I don't think you jump to that right away. I think if you draft him, I think in that mid to late third round makes the most sense for him. Because again, similar to Keon Coleman, the ability to create separation isn't always there. There's not really a second gear in the open field, but what I like about him is the yak. That's exactly what I'm looking for in an outside possession receiver for Washington. And that's what he does. But I think that at his size, you talked about 6'7", but he's also 237. So, another 10 to 15 pounds within 3 years. I heard someone compare him to Benjamin, same
Oh,
guy
wow.
with same school. That I don't see it. I see a
I
lot
don't see
more.
it either.
I see a lot more athletic prospect, and that's why I mentioned it as the flex tight end, because he transferred from Arizona State, and there was talk of that there. But I'm not pounding the table for that. I want this guy as a receiver. I think, you do your mocks when you get to that third round pick for Washington. That's the sweet spot for a player like him, because I think he, comes in year one. He gives you, some production in the red zone, and he can help. You can use him in a tight end form. I don't think you have to move him to tight end.
All I'm saying is you let him go to Buffalo, and Josh Allen is going to find use for him. He's going to catch touchdowns for him.
Yep.
So
we go get into. Go ahead, DC.
I was going to ask. So with Wilson, for his size being that tall, do you also think that some NFL teams could possibly find a big slot role for him? Put him in the slot, let him go against smaller DBs and things like that in their offensive matchups. Or
he's not explosive enough in the short area. I think if we want a big slot still can be explosive in the short area. Have good shuttle times. His shuttle times they're average. They're okay. I think you want him on the outside. You can put him in line sometimes, like I said, kind of disguise him like a pseudo tight end. But for the most part, he's your outside possession, move the chains guy.
DT Xavier Worthy showed out at the combine. He has the fastest 40 of all time now. Did he catch at the pro day? I don't think he did.
Texas wide receivers, they're just apparently just took over the combine.
Right. But he didn't catch at the pro day, did he?
I'm not sure.
I don't think he did. From what I don't think he did. But where you at with Xavier Worthy, DT?
With Worthy, he has the kind of has like the same problem with Mitchell. They both played at Texas, but the quarterback, in my opinion, kind of held them back from what they actually could have put up. But you're talking about a speed demon. Obviously, he showed that
radar said he did.
combine. Okay. I think for me,
Ty
like
said no, he didn't at all. Come on, y'all, did he or didn't he?
yeah,
What's up, Outlaw?
He didn't do.
Well, he didn't do.
He has the biggest chance of all these guys to be not much, in my opinion.
Yeah.
On the next level, it's great to have fast guys, but I think we've seen that, with Ross coming out of Washington University. A lot of these guys, speed is great, but I think out of all these prospects we talked about listed, he has the biggest chance to just really not do much, to be honest with you, because again, I've watched a little, and he's a decent route runner, but it's probably a product of Texas too, as far as the the entire route tree that they run. But again, his other teammate, I liked his tape, but no, he didn't blow me away either. The speed, we knew he was going to run fast if you watch any Texas games, but I think that if you take that time away from him, man, he could go in the 4th, 5th round. That's what kind of prospect he is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I remember he only ran a 40 at the combine, but I was talking about the pro day.
Yeah.
If Al Davis was still alive, dude, he would be drafted in the 1st round.
All right, let's do 2 more guys. Let's do let me see, Pearsall.
Yeah, I love him.
Start with you, Kyle.
Pearsall, the white boy out of Florida, 6'1", 189 pounds, a 4'4", 140, a 42-inch vertical, the highest out of the top 10 I have here, and a 10'9" broad. The kind of more so of the kind of streak crosser kind of wide receiver that you're going to expect, kind of attacking underneath the Brian Hart line, so to speak. I think him and Ladd McConkey are very similar. Ladd being 6 foot, 186 pounds, a 4'3", 940 as well. Both of those guys are very, very good route runners. I would comp Ladd McConkey to like a Cooper Kupp, so to speak. With Pearsall, you're more so looking at a guy that's attacking Danny Amendola type, in my personal opinion.
Adam?
Yeah, no, I tell you, you watch him for a game and a half, 2 games, you can see on the next level, he's just going to be that guy that, the instant crosser guy that's just going to get you, good yards after the catch. I just really like his game. It's not spectacular, but then you look at the numbers and he's extremely explosive. So he's another guy. Don't be surprised you see him go early in the second round or, just based on the depth, slip to the third. But I really like him. I think in Washington, he'd be a great fit.
He underutilized. I think he only had like 2 touchdowns last season at Florida.
Definitely. He was definitely underutilized. 4
DT?
touchdowns. Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
DT.
It's kind of wild that Jada Daniels literally has 4 wide receivers that's come out in this draft. You got Brian Thomas, you got Lee Neighbors, you got Johnny Wilson, and you got Ricky Pearsall, who also played at Arizona State.
Yeah.
But but for Pearsall, I think for me, one thing I definitely love is the toughness he plays with. I feel like he's one of those smart players that understands defensive schemes, and that's what NFL scouts and coaches are going to love about that. Obviously, I think people are going to question the explosiveness and how fast is he really is, but
Right.
I think he's a guy that's going to be able to attack zone defenses, understand the depth of it, and he's going to have a solid role in the NFL.
Last guy we're gonna do tonight is, let me write this down. And those of you that just joining, I am paying attention. If you see me looking up, I'm just kind of glassing up at WrestleMania. Anyhow, Lad McConkey. Let's start with you, Adam.
Yeah, no, I think that, he's probably one of the most widely known guys because I think everyone knows who Bowers is. And we saw a lot of those games where, Bowers either was out or he was struggling with injury. Those were the games that McConkey really took over. I think that, you can put him at the XY slot. I think you can just move around. He's one of the most versatile guys as far as the position. And I think that he's another scenario where you could see him go early or go into that third round because, again, it's pick your poison. It's what you're looking for. But, yeah, I think if you just watch the Georgia games and just see what he does with the ball in his hands, yeah, I think he's going to be a great pro.
What do you think, Kyle?
So against Missouri is what I watched earlier. And against Missouri, Georgia was having a really hard time moving the football through the air. And they were running the ball heavily, but they ended up going to Lad McConkey, even not only just in the short area quickness, getting the ball to line of scrimmage sort of thing. They started using him in attacking the field. And you see him being able to go up and hit the ball at the catch at his highest point, separating the cornerback from him. But the one thing that jumps out to you is the route running. I said earlier Cooper Kupp, and I truly mean that just in the route running where his measurables, his speed, it's not going to blow you away. It's not going to really be explosive. But his route running is so deceptive and quick that he gets to where he needs to go and smart in that regard. So with Lad McConkey, if you're adding him with a veteran quarterback, I think this is a guy who can get implemented immediately and be utilized heavily. And I think that that's somebody that's a recipe for success in the next level where you have the smart, you have the quickness. He just needs the outlet or the production or faucet, so to speak.
Unc said, is he overrated, DT, because he played for Georgia?
No, I don't think he's overrated because he played for Georgia. I mean, I think he's actually underrated because you add all the people that played in Georgia with Stetson Bennett. You got George Pickens. You got Jermaine Burton. We haven't even talked about him.
They rotated him a lot this year too, DT.
Yeah, like they had weapons. Georgia had weapons the past couple of years. And what's also crazy about McConkey this year was, if you look at production, I would think he had like maybe 800, 900 yards. He only had 30 catches, 478 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. But I think for him, he's one of those guys like we talk about.
I mixed them up.
But I think for me, you talk about a guy like Pearsall, let me just talk about, he's one of those guys who doesn't have that elite athleticism or thing that pops off to you, but his route running is so decisive. He's able to understand release packages, and when he gets the ball in his hand, he makes plays. And I think for any NFL team, you get a guy like that. There are some measurables that I've seen that were very similar to Garrett Wilson, which was absolutely wild. So don't be shocked if he comes on a team and he, with the right system, and he just produces right away.
He weighs 186 pounds as well. These wide receivers in this class, a lot of them a lot smaller, and so it's probably one thing that people are looking away from, saying, is he really all that good? But I think the route running is what you feel good about going to the next level. It's one of the hardest things to learn and be good at, but we've seen that if you can do it, it's an easy transition for you.
And he
Easier.
played against, and he did it against the highest level of competition in college football.
Yeah.
So that's what you got to focus when you break down the tape and watch him. Who is not everything level of competition, but for him, like I said, with Bowers out, that's when he had some of his better moments and had his big time. So if Georgia just had a lot of weapons to use. So if you put him in a different system, maybe he is a number one guy. But I think in the NFL, that's what you got to figure out is where do you want to put him.
Adam, we should come right back to you. Did we miss anyone that you want to throw out there?
No, I think we kind of sprinkled in, I talked about the kid from South Carolina. We talked about Malichi. We talked about them. There definitely is going to be more as we get later on the draft, but I think then you're talking about a bigger drop off, into the 5th, 6th round. And these guys are more depth players, trying to hopefully get on special teams. I think we pretty much touched on all the guys I think are, within that top 100, 120 range.
DT?
Man, look, there's a lot of receivers we ain't talked about. We ain't talking about Roman Wilson, Jamari Threat, David McCown, Malik Washington from Virginia, even the Washington guys, McMillan and Pope. We ain't even talk about those guys, but those are names, if you guys want to do some research after the show, look those names up. This is a deep wide receiver class, and don't sweat it if Washington don't pick one very, very early, because the amount of wide receivers we have, somebody's going to follow Washington, and Washington's going to love it in that spot, and they're going to take a receiver. I think wide receiver will be something they need to add for this room.
Yeah.
Thanks, Outlaw.
Yeah, I think the thing with this, the new regime, that has to be, they're going to want their new quarterback. And although, we all love Terry McLaurin and like Jahan Dotson, they want to put their stamp on it. And I think it's going to start with their, quarterback and a receiver that's taken relatively high is, in that day 2 range. I don't think that they're going to wait to day 3 to touch the position, but yeah, stay tuned. It's going to be fun.
Maybe we should
Rice.
do an episode on like the later round.
Yes, definitely. Let me catch up a little bit. I know we talk about Roman Wilson. I'm familiar with the guys, but yeah, I got to catch up.
Just because wide receiver being so deep, it might be one of those positions we should focus with middle to late.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe we should do that. Maybe around towards the end, before the draft, we will pull some guys up that we missed, that we wasn't able to get to as far as film work. And
I'll have Baker done by then.
We'll have like a combination show with everyone that we missed. And that episode, D'Angelo, is probably where you're going to see the quarterbacks as late as we possibly could review.
That's what everybody rated on, man.
I know. So we're gonna keep y'all. We gonna keep y'all hooked. We're gonna keep y'all hooked until then. Look, Trail. Caleb needs to call Malik Neighbors and try to get an off-field story going like he did. Right, Trail? That's what you want, buddy? We appreciate you, Poster King. We appreciate you, gang. Appreciate you, Outlaw, also for jumping in. Good show. I'm going to get back to WrestleMania. We appreciate all of you guys for giving us your time. We know your time is very valuable for you to spend it with us. We definitely appreciate it. Remember, do it because you love it, not because it loves you. One beat, one sound, one heart, one love.